Hello, I'm Dino Congonidis. This is number 0767, the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, and it comes to you right now.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
Now, it's time for an eclectic mix of interviews and some of the oddest news stories you'll ever hear. It's the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Hey there, hi there, ho there! Peter Anthony Holder here with you, and yes, this is indeed another edition of the Stuff File program, number 0767. And coming up on this edition of the Stuff File program, Alison Arngrim is back on the show. She's best known as Nellie Olson from Little House on the Prairie, and she talks about the popularity of that show, which this year celebrates the 50th anniversary of it first going on the air.
If anyone had told me when I was 12 that when I was 62, people would still be interested in Little House on the Prairie, that would be airing a bazillion times a day in 140 countries. And you have to remember, when we started the show in 74, there was no such thing as cable TV or VCR, let alone DVD streaming or any of this stuff. We had summer reruns and then eventually afternoon syndicated reruns. The concept that there would even be this many ways to watch the show, it didn't exist.
Relationship coach Frank Kermit talks about relationships, the plethora of dating shows, and the effects that they have on real relationships.
Let's start off with a certain premise, and this is something that when I do coach people, I make sure that they understand this. There is a difference between entertainment and education. And just because you're watching a show that gives you hope, and by all means, entertainment is there in part to give people hope. It's there to make people feel good. When you're trying to figure out if a relationship is for you, a relationship partner is for you, that comes from knowing yourself.
And there's lots and lots of Stuff File news, and of course, an idiot of the day. The guest slater, the person who told you this was show number 0767, was Dino Congonidis, who is a freelance cameraman and video editor who runs Motion Edge Productions. And I happened to work with Dino many years ago when I was at Global News. He's an excellent cameraman and an even better human being. Thank you very much, Dino, for doing the guest slate on this edition of the Stuff File program, a show that is listener-supported, fan-funded radio that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Well, let's get right to the stuff. Mount Erebus on Ross Island in Antarctica is one of 3 volcanoes on the island. Erebus is quite active, emitting plumes of gas and steam along with partially molten boulders. Scientists are particularly intrigued, though, with the sprays of tiny crystals of metallic gold, around 80 grams per day, and that's worth about $6,000. Traces of the gold dust have been found 621 miles away from the volcano.
There's gold in them dar hills.
Yeah, let's wait and see which person is going to risk their life up against an active volcano to get said gold. You know, that's literally unearthed treasure, but what about buried treasure? Well, Robert and Betty Fuchs of West Dorset, England, were deep into renovating their 400-year-old farmhouse when they decided to tear up the concrete floor to increase the height of their kitchen. As Robert wielded a pickaxe, they came upon a treasure 2 feet below the floor, $75,000 worth of ancient coins. The currency, which dated to the reigns of Queen Elizabeth I, King James I, and King Charles I, were in pristine condition. Said Betty, "I presume they were buried during the English Civil War, and the person intended to retrieve them, but never got the chance." A coin specialist said the coins were probably left there on one occasion around 1642. Could you imagine the sad sacks some 360 years ago who buried the coins but probably couldn't find the burial spot?
I'm thinking we ought to give up. Leave the whole outfit. Everything behind and go back to civilization.
Let me tell you something, my two fine bedfellows. You're so dumb there's nothing to compare you with. You're dumber than the dumbest jackass. Look at each other, will you? Do you ever see anything like yourself for being dumb specimens?
Yeah. The government of Chechnya, a republic of Russia, has had it with certain kinds of music, said Musa Dadiev, the Minister of Culture. I have announced the final decision and agreed with the head of the Chechen Republic that from now on, all musical, vocal, and choreographic works must correspond to a tempo of 80 to 116 beats per minute. Too fast is illegal, and so is too slow. Only just right is within the Chechen mentality and musical rhythm and brings to the people and to the future of our children the cultural heritage of the Chechen people. Well, that all sounds very footloose, doesn't it? Yeah. NPR checked various songs to see if they would comply with the new law. Interestingly, most hip-hop will, as its beats tend to be in the range of 85 to 95 BPMs, as will the Bee Gees Staying Alive at 104 BPM, and Taylor Swift's All Too Well at 94 BPM. Would you like to know what wouldn't make this list? A tune that at 76 BPM is definitely too slow? The Russian National Anthem. Well, that's a sticky wicket, isn't it? Yeah. 20 inmates of a prison in Maracaibo, Venezuela, didn't get far after tunneling out of their cells on April the 17th.
Say, I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque.
Waiting at the outside wall of the tunnel were a group of police officers who had been doing a training exercise. They had to help the prisoners out of the tight space before returning them inside, and the police commissioner said they are investigating the breakout with the goal of preventing similar situations in the future. These inmates didn't get the Shawshank Redemption ending that they were looking for.
Lord, it's a miracle! Man up and vanished like a fart in the wind.
Nope, they basically got caught in a clogged drain. And speaking of bodily functions, the Northview Cemetery in Dearborn, Michigan, has an unwanted frequent visitor, a serial pooper. Dearborn police have been called to the graveyard 7 times since February 25th after human feces were found among the gravestones. A city spokesperson said the pooper doesn't favor one particular gravesite and has not sullied the resting place of actor George Peppard, who starred with Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's and, of course, on TV's The A-Team and also Banachek. A source said the pooper always visits in the dark, wears dark clothing and a hoodie, and leaves a big mess, including used toilet paper. A police spokesperson said the department continues to work on identifying and locating the person responsible. Well, they clearly have his DNA. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our first guest here on this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, think you've tried all the exotic foods? I bet you haven't. Visitors to the Mercado República de San Luis Potosí in Mexico will find a particularly disgusting option: rat meat and rat broth. In the region, rat meat is coveted for its flavor and alleged medicinal purposes. Each bowl of rat broth includes vegetables and spices and a whole field rat for the low price of $5.80. The vendor, Jose Ramidos Hernandez, inherited the booth from his mother. He's the last rat meat seller in the market. His rats are caught in the surrounding countryside. They reportedly help people with anemia, diabetes, or cancer. Yeah, I think I'll let whatever is going to kill me, kill me. So Hernandez is the last rat meat seller in his market. Could you imagine what kind of sales boom and endless supply he could have in New York City? He could solve his problem and the problem so many apartment dwellers in New York have. I mean, it's well known that just about every apartment building has the little vermin.
Look, there is a rat in your unit. That is a fact, all right?
And let's get to our first guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program. Alison Arngrim is a very busy lady. The actress who played Nellie Olson on Little House on the Prairie seems to be circling the globe doing her show, Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. Plus, she will also have other events to deal with because this year is the 50th anniversary of the premiere of Little House on the Prairie, and there are plenty of events for that. I'm just going to cut this intro short because she's clearly too busy to be here. Alison joins us via Zoom from California. Hi, Alison.
Hi. Yeah, I know it is. I think I'm too busy to be anywhere. It's insane.
You have certainly done Nellie well. I mean, 50 years and it's still going strong with you. When I say that, 50 years, do you think back? Because I know I think back and go, wow, has that show been 50 years since it premiered? Can you believe it?
I know. I feel like I'm 100 years old. I mean, it's unbelievable as it is. If anyone had told me when I was 12 that when I was 62, people would still be interested in Little House on the Prairie, that would be airing a bazillion times a day in 140 countries. And I mean, you have to remember when we started the show in 74, there was no such thing as cable TV or VCR, let alone DVD streaming or any of this stuff. We had summer reruns and then eventually afternoon syndicated reruns. The concept that there would even be this many ways to watch the show, it didn't exist. We had no comprehension of how nuts this was going to be.
What do you think it is that leads to the longevity of the show? Is it the power of Michael Landon? Is it the source material of Wilder? Is it all those things?
All of the above. And, if you look at, we really blew up during the pandemic, which is so weird. But then you look at the fact that the books, Laura Ingalls' books, came out at the height of the Depression, and people just grabbed onto them and said, yes, I need to read this now. And then the series premiered in 74, and we were having a massive recession, and people couldn't afford food at the grocery store. And then they latched onto this show. And now here we are. Things are a little rough here and there. We're having inflation. We just had a thing where everybody got locked in their house for 2 years, and everyone started watching it again. And it's the show that is there for you when things go wrong. It's people identify with the characters. I mean, people have said to me from other countries, they go, well, this is how people live. We don't live like the people on the TV show Friends, living in a tiny house with 2 rooms and a whole bunch of children and not having enough money. And everyone has a Mrs. Olsen at their job and everyone has a Nellie at their school. Yeah, it's something that people can latch on to. It's a very emotional show. And it hits a nerve, and people really want it. They use it as comfort TV, and they really relate to the characters that have latched onto this, and they're not letting go.
I think one of the things that's also amazing about the show is that kids who watched the show when it first went on the air are now watching it with their grandchildren.
Reminds me, I'm 102. Yeah, it's bonkers. So imagine there were the grown-up moms who were watching it then, and then the little kids were watching it. Then we have what I call the after-school generation, the before-school generation, depending what time the reruns were on. Then we had the VHS generation, the DVD generation, and now we're into the streaming generation. And I met a woman who said, I don't think my granddaughter watches it. She said, oh, yes, I watch it on YouTube on my phone.
Now, I printed up your schedule for this year, and I think you owe me some toner. Wow. You have a lot of places to be within the next year.
It's crazy. I'm off. In fact, tomorrow I'm off to the Cherry Blossom Festival in Missouri. That's going to be fun. I always enjoy that one. And a bunch of the cast are going. And then we have a Nellie breakfast. We have all sorts of crazy things. And then I'm heading out in May. I'm doing Chicago, New York, Louisville, Nashville. And then I come back and take a little break. And then I'm Independence, Kansas. So we have multiple schedules going on. We have these official 50th anniversary things, some of them at official Little House sites like Independence, Kansas, Walnut Grove, the Walnut Grove pageant event, and then these sort of Prairie autograph show events that are popping up all over the country and becoming part of the official 50th tour. We had the Simi Valley event, and then I have my stand-up show. I have Confessions of Prairie Bitch that I'm doing at nightclubs in Louisville and Chicago and New York. And this is all happening at the same time. Oh, and then we're taking a side trip to Monte Carlo, because the International Television Festival at Monte Carlo decided to have a bunch of people from Little House in and celebrate the 50th too.
Now, it's one thing for the show to be celebrated after 50 years of first going on the air, but when you wrote your book and then that book turned into a show, I mean, it's been quite a few years since you've been doing that. Did you think this would happen?
So weird. Yeah. Well, and the show came first, even crazier. So I started doing the show. The beginnings of it in like 2002, and it really became the show it is now around like 2006. And then I started doing the show in France. Then I had the book in like 2010, 2011. And now it's like the book and the show have sort of overlapped with each other. It's all become one huge thing. And then I have the French show, which we then wound up doing a different. I'm now on my third French show. We now have a whole new French show. Nelly Olson enflamme les années 80. Nelly Olson sets fire to the 80s. Yeah.
So, besides all the things that you're doing, I mean, I follow you on Facebook, and we follow each other, and that's where I got your schedule from. But one of the things I noticed on Facebook, and by the way, just FYI, I will be talking to Dean Butler because his new book is coming out, Prairie Man, My Little House Life and Beyond. So which
is amazing, by the way. Melissa Gilbert did a foreword. I did a foreword. The book is amazing.
Excellent. So we'll be talking to him next month. But besides that, I saw on Facebook the fact that you were lamenting on the idea that people are impersonating you and other Little House actors and other actors beyond, and I guess it's become problematic. And when did this problem start, and what kind of problems is it manifesting?
It's really recent. I mean, up until recently, and you know, I'm a huge fan of the TV show Catfish. You know, I'm all about busting scams and going, that's not real. And I'm always the one to tell my friends, that person you're talking to, it's not them. It's totally not them. So I am very aware of scams and fakery and nonsense on the internet. And generally, up until recently, these people would be very, very, very famous people they would impersonate. Keanu Reeves is big. There's like 100 Keanu Reeves. And they would often be a sexy male star. They would hit up lonely women and say, yes, I'm totally in love with you, and I'm speaking to you personally, even though I'm this giant star who's making 2 movies back to back and couldn't possibly really be doing this. And they would tell them this, and then of course they'd start asking for the cash and the gift cards and the money and access to the bank account. It's just, you know, horrendous. They're ripping people off. And we've now become so famous. I didn't know we'd become this internet famous, but a lot of people from the show now have a very high social media profile. Dean Butler and I have the 50 for 50 podcast, all things Little House. We're doing it. It's become very popular. And we all are on Instagram and TikTok and everything. And I think we finally hit a point where the kind of people who sit around pretending to be celebrities to scam people have decided that the cast of Little House on the Prairie is famous enough to be worth the time and effort. I guess they can get a nickel out of somebody. So now there's a bunch of people who've been me. Obviously, Dean Butler's very popular, and Linwood Boomer, who played Adam Kendall, the good-looking blind professor there, married Mary. And Dean and Linwood especially, they like them. Linwood's not even on Facebook. Linwood Boomer isn't even on Facebook. And Dean and Linwood's profiles get spoofed because they're very handsome men, and there are women and young girls who, if they get a direct message from a guy saying that they're Linwood Boomer, they're Dean Butler, they will take that message and they will go to pieces and go, oh my God, he loves me, and talk to them. And they're targeting young women, which is very sad. Some of our fans are pretty sharp. Some of our fans are fairly sheltered and naive. Some of them are like, no, I'm only on Facebook to join the Little House in the Prairie groups. I'm not into the internet. I don't know anything about this stuff. I live in a small town. I watch Little House in the Prairie. I practically am Little House in the Prairie. I only go on the internet to like read about Nellie Olson and how Manzo Wilder. And so when they start getting these weird messages, it takes them a minute. They're like, well, I don't know. How do I know this is the person? I went and got a blue check. I had never gotten the blue check because, then you got to pay for it and it's a thing. And I was like, this. And I also, like I said, the whole celebrity thing. I was like, am I that famous? Seriously? I felt I was putting on airs if I got a blue check. It was ridiculous. I had to get a blue check because every time I shut down a fake profile, there were like 10 more.
Well, I believe
I just said I'm getting a blue check, guys. So I have a blue check. If you don't see the blue check, it's not me. Dean Butler had to get a blue check. Linwood's not even on Facebook, and we're having to talk to feds. And now, I've put some stuff up there, going, guys, here's how you tell it's a fake profile. It's clearly not us. We're not going to ask you to send us gift cards and money. We're not going to ask for your bank account information. And everybody's kind of also. Well, take it. Everybody's got a husband or a wife or a boyfriend or girl. We're not hitting y'all up on Facebook for a date. It's not happening.
Well, I have a feeling that part of the reason is because you are so world famous. I'm willing to bet that a lot of the scammers aren't even on this hemisphere.
Oh, they're not. They generally are not. They tend to be in like internet cafes and little like boiler room basements way, way out in other countries. It's very crazy. I've been following some of the wacky stuff on the internet for a while. There was a clickbait, as we say, the advertisement for a series of articles. Find out what these child stars are doing. And it's completely fake. It's like you go and half the people they just had in the headline aren't even in the article. It's like fake. But the running bit they do is they pick a child star or a celebrity and they have their picture. And then they have this horrible, horrible picture where it says, see how they are now. And it's often the mugshot of some poor, unfortunate person somewhere, or just some terrible photo they found of a person that is not them, and they put it next to their picture. The picture they found of a woman, I believe she was in Tennessee, a mugshot of a woman who no resemblance whatsoever, and they put her picture up next to mine, and it was really, really an unfortunate Although I have to say the woman was smiling. She was apparently, maybe she'd had a few drinks and was having a good time the night she got arrested. I hope she's okay. But they ran this photo and my friends were horrified. I, of course, thought it was funny. And the great thing is I figured out, because I talked to my friends who know these internet things, they're not going to use your picture if you're not famous enough to get them the clicks. As embarrassing and horrid and insulting and awful as this thing was, it was a giant compliment because they're not going to drag you into one of these terrible things unless you're famous enough and enough people are really going to click on that picture.
Wow. Well, Alison, you're famous enough. That's all I can say.
I'm famous enough that people. The funniest was early on when I found when they say don't Google yourself, or if you Google yourself, don't read past the third page.
Yeah.
Because then it gets weird. It does. You Google yourself and you see all the normal articles that come up with Google. And then around the third page, it gets really weird. You're like, why am I on that website? What is happening? And you keep going. I, of course, did this. I'm an idiot. And I saw these sites that were advertising nude or partially nude photos of celebrity women. And I was like, whoa, no, I don't have any of those. And there's my name. And I went, I click? And no, of course I'm not there. One of them had a swimsuit photo. That was it. And then they advertised that they had nude photos of all these people. And I got hold of someone who knew how this worked. And they went, oh, yeah, you're not in there. I go, what's my name doing there? Why is my name there? I'm not in any of these things. Why is my name there? They said, it's to get through the filter. I said, I'm sorry. He said they pick a bunch of celebrities. Maybe they have a nude photo or a scantily clad photo. Sometimes they don't even have anything. But they put a bunch of celebrities that there might be sexy photos of, or that people would want sexy photos of. They've got Britney Spears' name and stuff. And then they put a bunch of celebrities that are definitely never going to be there, like Alison Arngrim, Mother Teresa, Barbara Walters, and names that you're not connecting with sexy photos at all in order to get through the spam and censorship filters on people's servers so that people will get see the post and get the email.
Wow.
And I said, are you telling me that my name is the opposite of porn? And he said, yes, you are so clean cut, apparently. You are the opposite of porn, and they're using your name to go through filters and tell the machine, nah, this isn't a sexy page. It's okay. Allison's on it. It can't be anything good.
Well, I just want to let you know, Mother Teresa could never have played Nellie Olson. I'll just say that right now.
No. But there you are. So that was a little embarrassing. But the internet is a freakish and weird and scary place. And there's just people from all over the world. And some of them aren't very nice. And some of them are desperate for money and will do terrible, desperate, awful things for money. And one of them is pretending to be people from Little House on the Prairie now. Which is bad. So you're going to have to look for your blue check. You're going to have to look twice. You get a direct message from anyone from Little House, especially if you've never talked to us before. Don't believe it right away. Double check. Go look at the profile. See if the message makes any sense. And if anybody from Little House on the Prairie sends you a message asking for money, no, it's not us. Block immediately.
Well, you are the real person, and you have the blue check, and also there are some real websites. You still have bonnet heads, right?
Bonnetheads.com. Yeah, indeed. That you can find me at bonnetheads.com. I got Bonnetheads Square where you can buy T-shirts and photos and books and whatnot. And I won't ask for payment in gift cards. I'll just sell you a book or something. Yeah.
And when you do your live show and you do it around the world, is there a commonality with all of the audience? Regardless of where you go, is a Little House audience or a Little House crowd the same everywhere you've been around the world?
I say kind of yes and no, because there's certain people who are very big. We tend to be more big with women. Little House, maybe surprisingly to some people, has a huge gay following. Probably not surprising that Nellie Olson and Mrs. Olson have a big gay following. But it does vary around the country and around the world. In France, for instance, it's not considered unmanly to openly cry over Little House on the Prairie. So you'll see more guys, young men, I see more young men who are Little House fans openly in France than I would see maybe in this country. Manly men going, I love that show, Charles. He cries. It's beautiful.
I feel better now that I hear that.
Yeah, it's like grown men. Charles, it's beautiful. He plays the violin. He cries. He's a wonderful man. They don't see a problem there. But the age range blows my mind too, because you think, no, because of the whole rerun phenomenon, the streaming, I'm getting people my age, and then I'm getting people 40s and 30s, and I'm getting like all these young people showing up at my shows. Like, who are you? It's very crazy.
Okay, so let's quickly wrap this up and say some of the places that you're going to be. This is going to air next week, so you'll already be past the Cherry Blossom Festival. Yep. But coming up, I believe you're in Chicago, Illinois for Confessions of a Prairie Bitch at the Venus Cabaret.
Yes, indeed. Venus Cabaret. And then I'm going to head over to New York Mother's Day weekend. I always do the Mother's Day show at the Laurie Beachman Theater on 42nd Street on the Sunday then. And then I'm heading down south, and I will be at a club called Play. And they have one big one in Nashville, a big one in Louisville. And I'll be at Play Nashville and Play Louisville the next weekend. I will be in Independence, Kansas. The schedule's amazing. You can go to bonnetheads.com. You can go to my Facebook. You can sign up for the Nellie newsletter. I will be going to Provincetown to P-Town this year in July. It's during, Bear Week. I will be performing at the Red Room there. Bears love Little House on the Prairie. What can I tell you?
And the last time I spoke to you, which is like 4 years ago, you at the time were doing a live show on Facebook. Live readings. Are you still doing that?
I have not. I started in 2020 when we all got stuck. I started reading the Little House books live on Facebook every day, live. Cold reading, just read page 2. We will now read Little House. And I read all the Little House books. I read books about Laura Ingalls Wilder, books inspired by Laura Ingalls Wilder. I read The Wizard of Oz, Anne of Green Gables, and then went back and reread Little House on the Prairie. Again, all 9 books. This went on for over 600 readings. It was a huge thing. I had some other cast members guest star, but we did daily readings through the entire pandemic of Little House on the Prairie. I also started cooking videos. That's sort of still going. If you go to YouTube, there is a channel we now have, Who's Going to Do the Cooking with Alison Arngrim, where you can see all my cooking videos on YouTube. I did start doing shows out of my living room on StageIt, a short version of Confessions on StageIt.com, pay-per-view out of my living room when I couldn't go to the clubs. And we still do those occasionally. You know, when it gets cold and rainy and nobody can go out, I'll do a show out of the living room too.
Excellent. You're so busy. And you mentioned your podcast that you're doing with Dean. Mention that again so that people can find that.
It's the 50 for 50 podcast. It's all over the place. We're on YouTube. We're on all the podcast services. If you check Facebook, Instagram, everything, look for Little House on the Prairie. 50 episodes for the 50th anniversary. 50 for 50 with Dean Butler, Pamela Bob out of New York. She's amazing. And me talking about the show, interviewing people from the show. We're doing the big Walnut Grove pageant in July. And then there's these marvelous Gravel Road Markets is a series of events that's Independence, Kansas. We're doing a thing in Connecticut, end of August, beginning of September. It's going to be huge in Hartford, Connecticut. We're going to be in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We're going to go to Branson, Missouri. We're going to Johnny Cash's ranch just outside Nashville. And these are all these fan meet and greet autograph shows. There's like special VIP fan dinners and breakfasts with the cast. And so that's a whole series of events with Gravel Road Markets. So we have multiple venues that we're spinning this out in. Excellent.
And I'll mention another website. There is spincyclenyc.com, correct?
Indeed. Those are the lovely people who book my stand-up tour. And if you go to Spin Cycle and you'll see the Alison Arngrim Confessions of Prairie Bitch Nellie Olson tour, you can click on that and you'll see there all the dates. We just added San Francisco in August and tickets will be on sale for that. But tickets are on sale now for Louisville and Nashville and Chicago and New York. And I think P-Town's for sale already.
And spincyclenyc.com, is that also a great place to get tickets, a one-stop shop kind of place?
Click there. The link they give you goes straight to ticketing. You can buy your tickets there. They also have other shows, too. You should check out their other stuff and see if it's in a city near you. They're amazing.
Excellent. Alison, thank you very, very much for being on the program with us. Again, like I said, your schedule is so busy, so I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with us.
All right. And remember, real Little House stars only, except no substitutions.
There's only one original, Alison Arngrim, and that was indeed her. She's always tons of fun to talk to. You can check out the website bonnetheads.com for more information. You can also check out the website spincyclenyc.com to find out more about her upcoming appearances of her acclaimed show, Confessions of a Prairie Bitch. And you can go to my website at thestufffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0767, and you'll find all the links I just mentioned. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, and we spent so much time with Alison that we're only going to have one break in this episode of the Stuff File program, and it's coming up in just a matter of moments. When we return, we'll have more Stuff File news, and we'll talk about relationships and the effect that dating shows can have on them. Stick around.
There's still more guests, more news, and an idiot of the day coming your way on the Stuff File program. Stay tuned. The Stuff File program is a listener-supported, fan-funded radio show that depends on you for our success. Join us at patreon.com to help make this show an even bigger and better radio experience. Sign up and find out about our rewards program. Being a patron doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. There's absolutely no obligation. You could join today and end whenever you'd like, but the time we have your support would be so greatly appreciated. We'd also love to hear your thoughts about the show and even your ideas for rewards. Join us for the ride. Join us at patreon.com/The Stuff File Program.
Michael Liebling is the author of The Serial Killer's Son Takes a Wife. It's a page-turning thriller. You say you've read other serial killer novels? Oh, as Michael will tell you, not like this one.
It's not like any serial killer novel you've read before. It really goes behind the scenes. So when I say he takes a wife, you've got to imagine what it's like to be the offspring of somebody who's murdered multiple people. So how do you live with yourself after that? You were just a kid when it all happened. If you fall in love, how do you tell the woman you love your dad was a serial killer? And how would she react? So the title, it's not entirely clear, but as you get into it, it will become very clear.
The Serial Killer's Son Takes a Wife. It's a recipe for mystery with a scoop of humor and a sprinkle of horror. The Serial Killer's Son Takes a Wife. Available now at Amazon and wherever you buy books.
Hi, this is Malik. I'm Peter's favorite nephew. I have to whisper that because Mishak thinks he's Peter's favorite nephew. Boy, that kid is so delusional. Anyway, you're listening to Peter Anthony Holder. By the way, if you see Mishak, let's just keep this between you and me, okay? He doesn't need to know. Now, here's Peter Anthony Holder.
Thank you, Malik. Love you. Let's get back to the stuff. A Louisiana woman forced her way into a male neighbor's home and sought to initiate a threesome with the victim and his girlfriend. Dispatched to an 11:15 p.m. harassment complaint at an apartment complex in Monroe, a patrolman was told by the man that upon answering a knock on his door, an unknown neighbor forced her way into the residence. The woman, the victim said, began trying to have sexual activities with him and his girlfriend. While the alleged late-night incursion, however, did not result in any three-way action, a woman did end up in handcuffs. A police canvass of the area located the female suspect at a nearby Circle K. She was identified by cops as 31-year-old Shadonna Rayshonette Hurd. Hurd was arrested and charged with unauthorized entry of an inhabited dwelling, which is a felony, and several misdemeanors, including disturbing the peace, criminal damage, and resisting an officer. You know, when you're searching the rest of your apartment building for a late-night booty call, it's important first to find out if someone indeed is interested in your booty. Rene Raymond and his wife had a magical trip to Switzerland and never gave a second thought to uploading lots of photos and sending plenty of text messages from his phone. But after the couple returned to their Dunedin, Florida home, his cell phone bill arrived. T-Mobile says he owed $143,442.74, including 9.5 gigabytes of international roaming data. Raymond said he had told an employee at a T-Mobile store of his travel plans. They said, "You're covered." Whatever that meant, you're covered. He apparently wasn't covered. He called customer service, who told him, "No, this is a good bill." Raymond hired an attorney to write letters to T-Mobile, which ignored them. The attorney then called a TV station to ask that they cover the story. Days later, a reporter from WFTS in Tampa said someone from the carrier called Raymond and offered to credit his account for the entire amount. I wonder if the person who called from the carrier had their caller ID blocked.
Don't trust big decisions to just any network. Go with T-Mobile.
An audit by the San Jose, California Independent Police Auditor revealed a new controversial tactic being used by officers. It's called shock talk. Officers, on at least 2 occasions, initiated traffic stops with the question, "Are there any dead babies in the car?" One cop said his field training officer suggested it because it would catch someone off guard, causing a greater likelihood of the listener speaking the truth. The tactic came to light because of citizen complaints, and investigators found body camera footage of officers using it. The audit says this technique was strongly discouraged by the San Jose Police Academy during training and in a memo from the chief. The auditor also couldn't find any reasonable training to support using the concept. Gee, I wonder what the best answer to "Are there any dead babies in the car?" would be. I know the answers I would use. Number 1, no, that's just my aftershave. Number 2, no, not anymore. And number 3, ask my lawyer. And finally, in this section of Stuff File News, before we get to our last guest here on this edition of the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder, 2 men were cited in Vermont Friday evening after a fight over some pigs. Vermont State Police received a call about pigs blocking the road. They then began receiving multiple calls claiming 2 men were fighting in the same area. When officers responded, they found that 37-year-old Ty Morrison and 57-year-old Michael Sear were the 2 men, and they were fighting over the pigs, which neither of them owned or managed. Police say both Morrison and Sear engaged in violent, tumultuous behavior, and they were cited to appear in Orleans County Superior Court for aggravated disorderly conduct. Okay, this story doesn't seem complete. I mean, the one thing I'd like to know is exactly who owns or manages the pigs, and if these guys don't, then why are they fighting over them? In any case, I'm glad the cops showed up because I'd hate to see this situation degenerate into a scene from Deliverance.
I bet you can squeal. I bet you can squeal like a pig. Oh, which squeal? Squeal now. Squeal.
And let's get to our last guest here in this edition of the Stuff File program, shall we? Millions of people watch The Golden Bachelor on TV. They saw senior widower Jerry Turner meet women, select a mate, and even get married on live TV. And 3 months later, the couple divorced. Which brings us to the question, are reality dating shows just good entertainment, or do they have a negative effect on the dating relationships of both the participants and the people who watch? We put that question to relationship coach Frank Kermit, who is back on the show. He joins us via Skype from right here in Montreal. Hi, Frank.
Hello, sir, and how are you?
Just tickety-boo. Just doing better than that couple, I can assure you. So there are so many shows on television. I know you don't watch them. I don't watch them either. But just to give a list, there's Too Hot to Handle, Love is Blind, Love Island, The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, Married at First Sight, 90 Day Fiancé, Dating Naked, Farmer Wants a Wife. And that last one, that is a show that is done regionally all over the world. There's a Canadian version, American version, British, Australian, the list goes on and on. There are dozens of these shows on television right now. Good thing or bad thing?
Okay, let's start off with a certain premise. And this is something that when I do coach people, I make sure that they understand this. There is a difference between entertainment and education. And just because you're watching a show that gives you hope, and by all means, entertainment is there in part to give people hope. It's there to make people feel good. When you're trying to figure out if a relationship is for you, a relationship partner is for you, that comes from knowing yourself. Let's use the example of fairy tales. What is the classic ending of most fairy tales in our society?
Oh, well, and they live happily ever after.
Happily ever after. Do you know anybody who realistically lives a happily ever after?
I know a few, but they're few and far between. But I know a few.
But the few who, let's say, are happily ever after, there's usually some kind of price they have to pay. They have to be a certain type of person. They have to have certain types of expectations. They probably had to work on themselves to get to that point. Happily ever after doesn't just happen. Doesn't happen in a vacuum. And the happily ever after is not something that's realistic. There's work that has to go into happily ever after.
Do you think people who either go on these dating shows or even just watch dating shows have a false sense of the outcome, or even a lower sense of realism?
Okay, I understand the instinct for everybody to go ahead and blame media. And what I'm trying to explain is that it's not the media that's influencing these people. It's the people who influenced the creation of that media.
Okay.
That's the key here, okay? These shows cater to a demographic that already believes in those things. It's not like somebody watches that TV show and says, oh, golly gee, well, I saw that show and now I'm going to start believing a whole bunch of things about relationships. The media reflects the audience first and foremost. Now, can the media influence audience members? Well, of course, human beings are influenceable creatures. If I'm driving in a car and I see somebody with a flat tire and I see somebody else helping them fix that flat tire, and I continue driving for a few miles and I see somebody else with a car breaking down, I'm much more likely to stop and help the second car because I've just witnessed the first person helping someone with their broken down car. We are human beings. We are creatures that of influence. We can easily be influenced. But when it comes to relationships, if you want a great relationship in your life, the onus is on you to know yourself, know what you want, set a life plan, and then look for a partner that best matches that. You got to know what you can and cannot deal with. It's not this idea of, well, when you're in love with somebody, you'll just tolerate it. That's great for fantasies, but people don't even tolerate their own family members. People have traumas that they've never dealt with. People have idiosyncrasies that just rub other people the wrong way. So the reality is, it doesn't matter what your influences are. Ultimately, happiness is dependent on you being responsible for your own choices.
So do you think that people who watch reality shows, and again, you described the horse before the cart as opposed to the cart before the horse, and saying that it's the general population that drives the need for television to create these shows. But do you think that people who watch these shows end up with a lower expectation of happily ever after, or a greater expectation of happily ever after? Or does it wash?
Here's what I think, and I'm just going to try to sum this up.
Yep.
In the end, I think people watch shows like this because, number one, they really are entertaining. Okay, it's a fun form of entertainment. You get to see other people's lives. And for some people, it gives them hope. They look at these things as examples of the way life could be. It gives them an idea that, well, if some of these people might find a connection, maybe there's hope for me out there. Maybe there's hope for me that I'll be able to emulate or have the type of relationship that I see on screen. And that's a good thing. I think these shows fulfill a need for people to escape to give them an idea of what's possible. However, in the end, the only person who has a job, the only person who's responsible for making your life more amazing is you. And when people go out into the real world and they try to make these relationships work and they're struggling, you know, when you date somebody and it doesn't work, you can point the finger at the other person all you want, but at some point you got to look at yourself and say, I'm the common element in every single relationship I get into. And if I'm struggling to meet somebody worthwhile, maybe I'm not bringing enough to attract somebody worthwhile. And that's a really hard realization. That's a very unpleasant place to be. But it is the starting point of having an amazing life.
Okay, well, here's another dynamic in the situation. Couples who watch the show together, and I'll use another example. You remember back in the day, and I believe they still have it, where Cosmopolitan would ask a question or ask a series of questions about your relationship, and one person, and let's face it, it's Cosmopolitan, so it's a magazine that's geared toward women, and women will ask their mates these questions, and they'll argue about it. Well, I know people who have sat down watching these shows and have argued about it. One person thinks it's ridiculous. One person thinks it's great. And it causes all kinds of problems.
Okay. The problems didn't exist because of these shows.
Okay.
The shows may bring to light cracks in that relationship's foundation. One person liking it, one person not liking it is not going to be the cause of a fight. But when one person says, I love this aspect of the show, and the other person says that aspect is not important to me, now we're getting into a value system. So the key here is let's look at the values underlying the opinions. And maybe there's a conflict with these values. So let's choose a really hot button topic here, okay? Because let's get right into this with a hot button topic.
Okay.
Let's talk about when two people have different religious beliefs and they're in a relationship. And now the question is, well, how are we going to raise the kids? In what religion? In what faith? What traditions are we going to expose them to, and what traditions are we not going to expose them to? These are conversations that couples need to have before they decide to get into a committed relationship. You're not in control of your feelings. You're going to fall in love and you're going to be attracted to a variety of people, but just because you have feelings for someone doesn't necessarily make them a good life partner. Having those kind of discussions, here's my life plan. I want to raise my kids in such and such a faith. I want to expose my kids to these things, and I don't want my kids to be exposed to these other things. A lot of the couples who fight when it comes to things like religion, different religious beliefs, these couples usually didn't have a thorough conversation beforehand. They figured, oh, we love each other, it'll all just work out. It doesn't just all work out. You really have to figure out what it is that's important to you. And here's the clincher. If people don't know themselves well enough, they might think, oh, when I get to that point, this is how I'll react. And once they get into that situation, they're not so happy anymore. So suddenly things bother them that they didn't think were going to bother them. And you have to talk it out. If they're fighting over a TV show, there's something else really going on. There's a value conflict, or there's maybe something else that the couple is unhappy about. They don't talk about the thing they're really unhappy about, so they argue about something that's really inconsequential.
I think all you've just said is you've laid the groundwork for the importance of what you do, and that is people should see a relationship coach when they're starting a relationship, not when they're at the end of one or near the end of one, because it may be too late.
Usually at that point, whatever incompatibilities are full blown. What I advise anybody to do, and if there's anybody listening right now, write out your life plan, your day-to-day expectations going forward between now and the age of 100. And it has to include things like where you want to live, how you want to raise your kids, when you want to retire, if you want to retire. You want to start your own business? You want to work for somebody else? Do you have a job that takes up so much of your time? And does your partner have the expectation that suddenly all that's going to change? Or do they understand that, listen, I got with you because I love how you're passionate about what you do, but I understand that you're going to be at that passion and in that industry 14 hours a day, and I may not get to see you most evenings, and I'm only going to get to see you on the weekends, if then. These are the things that people don't necessarily want to discuss or think about because, hey, we love each other, so quote unquote, it'll all just work out. Well, it doesn't all just work out.
Final question, and that is, would you ever go on one of these reality shows?
I don't think anybody would want to see me on a reality show. I ain't cute. I ain't cute enough to be for TV. That's why most of the media I do is on radio and audio.
Okay.
Nobody wants to see this face on TV on a regular basis.
And I prefaced this earlier in the conversation. You don't watch any of these shows, do you?
No, I don't. I generally don't watch very much television. I will binge watch a couple of shows that may have garnered my interest, but these shows, no, I don't watch them. And there's not that there's anything wrong with them. Okay, I'm not against them. I think it's a fantastic form of entertainment. And look, people need good entertainment. People need to escape the misery of their lives. And if a TV show like these can provide that, that's a wonderful thing. Just don't confuse the entertainment for education.
And on that note, Frank, thank you once again for being a guest on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
I can't wait to be on the show again. It's always a pleasure, sir. Be well.
Relationship coach Frank Kermit. You can check out his website at franktalks.com. You can go to my website at thestuffwile.com. Check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0767, and you'll find the link to his site. You're listening to the Stuff File program with me, Peter Anthony Holder. We have an Idiot of the Day coming up in just a matter of moments, but I've got one more Stuff File news story to share with you right here, right now. In Clearwater, Florida, a 53-year-old boat captain was arrested and charged with boating under the influence. It was during a tour that had 30 passengers on it. Witnesses told law enforcement that John Edward Beckwith, the captain of the Clearwater Fun Boat, was impaired to the point where he fell off the vessel just before 2 p.m.
Man overboard! What? Stop the boat!
Police say when they spoke to employees on the boat, they were told that Beckwith arrived at work stumbling and had food all over his face. Clearwater police say Beckwith's breath smelled of alcohol, he was unbalanced, and his eyes were bloodshot. Beckwith has prior DUI convictions in Michigan and Arizona, 4 to be exact. Officials say the incident is being investigated by the Clearwater Police Department and the Coast Guard. Still being investigated? I mean, his breath smelled of alcohol, his eyes were bloodshot, he had food all over his face, and he fell overboard on something called the Clearwater Fun Boat. What's left to investigate? Anyway, boys and girls, it's that moment you've all been waiting for. It's time now for the Idiot of the Day.
And now it's time for the Strange Things Adults Do. The Stuff File presents the Idiot of the Day.
A 72-year-old Scottish woman by the name of Moira Gallagher and her friend Charmian Widowson were touring Romania in April, enjoying a drive through the Carpathian Mountains. They happened upon 2 brown bears and stopped the car to get a picture with them. Then Widowson turned the car around and pulled up to the bear for another photo op. Widowson said, "I rolled down the window. I thought he wanted to be friends. He started getting into the car and bit my friend." She said she thought the bear approached because he heard the women were talking about getting something to eat. "I think he decided he had to eat my friend." Oh, that's funny. I'm sure the friend really appreciates that. Gallagher was wearing a thick jacket with 2 layers underneath. Although the bear clamped down on her hand with his jaws, she escaped with minor wounds. "I've been very, very lucky," she said. Yeah, I'm sure Moira spent the rest of the day giving her friend the evil eye because why, oh why, would said friend not only turn her car around to get a selfie with a bear, but also open the window too? One reason, and one reason only. She's an idiot!
Gee, I'm only a kid, but even I know you're an idiot.
And that's it for this edition of the Stuff File program, number 0767. Hope you enjoyed it. The website is thestufffile.com, and once again, stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H, where you'll find information and links on all of our guests by going to the weekly Stuff File page. Just look for the corresponding program number, and once again, that's 0767. Email me at peter@thestufffile.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Spoutable, Mastodon, and Blue Sky as PA Holder. Check us out on patreon.com, where you can become a patron of the program. Hope to see you back here for our next show on the air, online, or as a download. We're coming to you from everywhere, including KDXRadio.com, TrueTalkRadio.com, over the air on World FM in New Zealand, WLSLLP FM in Dade City, Florida, KZZHLP FM in Eureka, California, CKUW FM in Winnipeg, CFMU in Hamilton, CKLU in Sudbury, Local 107.3 FM in St. John, CHSR in Fredericton, and also streaming on just about any streaming service your little heart desires. That's it. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Stuff File program with Peter Anthony Holder, a presentation of Flying Fish Communications. We leave you with this burning question. How come birds aren't tickled by feathers?